What if I told you the coffee in your kitchen right now is costing you more than you think, and might not even be worth drinking? In this economy, every grocery trip hurts. Nobody can afford to throw money away on coffee that tastes so bad you drown it in creamer, or worse, dump half the bag in the trash. And some of these brands, they've been tied to real FDA recalls, metal in canned coffee, instant coffee with possible glass fragments, and decaf that wasn't decaf at all. There's also much hiding behind that label on the coffee bag in your pantry. Today, we're exposing it all so you can finally buy coffee that tastes great and won't put your family's health at risk. Ready for 9 coffee brands experts say you need to stop buying? And number 1? Yeah, it's probably sitting in your pantry right now. Let's start with a name everyone knows, but is far from the worst on this list. Folgers has been the soundtrack to American mornings for generations. The best part of waking up, right? For decades, this was the coffee your parents bought, your grandparents trusted, and budget-conscious families reached for without a second thought. But here's what's happened since those old commercials. Coffee reviewers consistently rank Folgers among the lowest quality mass-market coffees you can buy. The complaints are always the same: heavy use of cheaper Robusta beans, a bitter, burnt rubber aftertaste, and a staleness that hits you the moment you open the can. That staleness isn't an accident. Folgers is pre-ground and canned months before it ever reaches your kitchen. By the time you brew it, oxidation has already stolen most of the flavor and aroma you paid for. So what do people do? They dump in flavored creamer, extra sugar, anything to make it drinkable. And suddenly that budget coffee is quietly adding calories, carbs, and cost to every single cup. In a tight month, that matters. If you buy a huge tub and only enjoy the first few cups, what you really paid for was disappointment spread out over 30 mornings. The savings you thought you were getting? They disappear with every pour. And yet, despite appearing on multiple coffee brands to avoid lists, Folgers remains one of the best-selling coffees in American grocery stores. The question is, why are we still buying it? If Folgers built its empire on nostalgia, the next coffee on this list built its on a promise it stopped keeping a long time ago. Good to the last drop. That slogan used to mean something. Maxwell House was once a prestige brand, served in hotels, associated with quality that justified the name. Today, it's just another giant tub fighting for shelf space in the budget aisle, and the quality has followed the price down. Like Folgers, Maxwell House relies heavily on cheaper Robusta blends and aggressive roasting techniques that produce a harsh, flat flavor. It's pre-ground for maximum shelf life, not freshness. By the time you're scooping it into your filter, the good is long gone, and you're just hoping for the last drop to be over. The bitterness is the killer. That burnt, acrid taste pushes people toward the same trap. More creamer, more sugar, more money spent trying to fix what shouldn't need fixing. But here's what really stings in today's economy. People buy those big cans thinking they're being smart with their money, stretching the grocery budget, making coffee at home instead of hitting the drive-thru. But if half that can get choked down without enjoyment, or worse, thrown away because it's undrinkable, that's not savings. That's waste you didn't even notice. With how fast coffee prices have climbed in the last few years, that kind of waste is like pouring dollar bills straight down the sink. Online taste tests consistently rank Maxwell House near the bottom, even among cheap brands. It went from hotel prestige to being named one of the worst mass-market coffees you can buy. Good to the last drop? Maybe, but only because you're just trying to get through it. Now, if you thought the problem with these coffees was just flavor, the next entry on this list adds another layer. You're paying way more than you realize. K-Cups changed everything. No mess, no measuring, no waiting. Just pop in a pod, press a button, and you've got coffee in under a minute. For busy parents, rushed workers, and anyone who hates cleanup, it felt like the future. But convenience has a price, and most people have no idea how steep it really is. Multiple breakdowns have shown that K-Cups cost significantly more per ounce than bagged coffee, even when the pods are filled with mediocre beans. Per pound, many K-Cup pods actually cost more than beans from a high-end roaster, while still tasting like break-room coffee. Read that again. You could be paying premium prices for what tastes like the pot sitting in an office kitchen since 7 a.m. And the taste complaints are everywhere. Thin, watery, weak. So weak that people end up running 2 pods just to get 1 decent mug, which doubles the cost all over again. For a family brewing multiple pods every morning, that monthly expense can rival or exceed what you'd spend on far better beans brewed the traditional way. You're paying for convenience, sure, but you're also paying for disappointment. Then there's the environmental angle. Older K-Cup generations weren't recyclable at all. Even now, recycling options are confusing or completely unavailable in many cities. Those little plastic pods pile up fast, in your trash, in landfills, and on your conscience. The pitch was high-tech, modern, effortless coffee. The reality? You're spending more for less and the planet's picking up the tab. But if K-Cups trick you with convenience, the next brand tricks you with price. And what you're really getting might surprise you. Nescafé is everywhere. It's the coffee of dorm rooms and hotel desks, the go-to for travelers, students, and anyone who needs caffeine without the equipment. Just add hot water, stir, and you're technically drinking coffee. Technically. Here's what often gets overlooked. Instant coffee is one of the most processed forms you can buy. Lower quality beans subjected to industrial drying methods that strip away much of what makes coffee taste like coffee. Nescafé, despite being a global giant, doesn't lean heavily into organic or transparent sourcing. Critical roundups flag it as the kind of mass-produced, non-organic coffee where people worry about pesticide residues and overall bean quality. And the taste? Harsh, flat, bitter in a way that makes you reach for the sugar bowl almost automatically. That's where the hidden cost creeps in. When you're drinking multiple cups a day and each one needs sweeteners or powdered creamer just to be tolerable, those additions stack up. The cheap coffee isn't so cheap anymore, and you're adding empty calories to every cup. For people on very tight budgets, Nescafé seems like the obvious choice. But every weak, unsatisfying cup that needs fixing quietly increases your daily spend while delivering less of what you actually wanted. Despite being the daily coffee for millions around the world, Nescafé lands on brands to avoid lists over and over. Not because it's dangerous, but because when a company focuses on volume and instant formats instead of clean, traceable beans, the customer always ends up paying somehow. Now, if Nescafé disappoints on the budget end, the next coffee disappoints people who thought they were upgrading. Here's a brand that should be better. Seattle's Best is owned by Starbucks. It's marketed as the smoother, more affordable sibling. Cafe quality without the cafe price. For shoppers trying to step up from Folgers or Maxwell House without breaking the bank, it seems like the obvious move. So why does it keep landing on avoid lists? Coffee critics and consumer reviews tell the same story. Flat, overly dark, aggressively bitter, less Seattle's Best, and more generic diner from the highway. The smoothness promised on the bag doesn't show up in the cup. Part of the problem is the same as every other supermarket coffee. It's pre-ground, bagged, and left to sit on shelves for months. By the time you open it, the volatile compounds that create aroma and nuance are already gone. In blind taste tests and online rankings, Seattle's Best routinely lands in the bottom tier, sometimes even below cheaper store brands that don't have Starbucks' name on the bag. But here's what makes Seattle's Best sting more than the others. You're paying a premium for the Starbucks halo. You're spending more because you believe you're getting better. And when the flavor turns out to be no different, or even worse, than the cheap brands, that's a direct hit to a budget that's already stretched thin. People trying to upgrade their coffee game end up feeling tricked. And when disappointment at home pushes them back to the cafe, they're suddenly double paying. Once for the bag that didn't deliver, and again for the drink they hope to avoid buying. For a coffee that trades on the world's most famous coffee company's reputation, that's not just disappointing, it's embarrassing. If this has been eye-opening so far, hit the like button so more people stop wasting money on bad coffee. And stick around, the next 4 brands get even worse. Speaking of strong expectations, the next coffee on this list has a devoted following, but for a lot of people, it's just too much to handle. Café Bustelo isn't trying to be subtle. This is the bold, no-nonsense, espresso-style coffee that's been a staple in Hispanic households for generations. It's strong, it's cheap, and it promises that hard-hitting caffeine kick people crave when they need to get moving. For a lot of fans, that intensity is exactly the point. But for others, it's a rough ride they didn't sign up for. Taste tests frequently describe Café Bustelo as extremely bitter, with notes that veer into ashtray territory when brewed strong. That aggressive profile suggests heavy reliance on dark roasting and lower-grade beans, and the consequences show up fast. Sensitive stomachs get hit with cramping and acid reflux. Anyone with anxiety or heart concerns feels that powerful caffeine punch push their nervous system into overdrive. And here's the budget trap. Café Bustelo is often sold in giant cans that look like a great deal. But if the coffee is so harsh you can't finish it, or you end up cutting it with something milder just to get through the can, that savings evaporates. You're stuck with a product you paid for but can't enjoy. Café Bustelo has a loyal fan base, and there's nothing wrong with loving strong coffee. But it repeatedly appears on avoid lists for one simple reason. For a lot of people, it's just too aggressive. And buying a coffee you can't comfortably drink is the most expensive mistake of all. If Bustelo is too intense for its own good, the next coffee on this list has the opposite problem. It promises something familiar and delivers something completely wrong. Everybody loves Dunkin, the drive-thru coffee, the iced drinks, that specific Dunkin flavor that millions of Americans crave on their morning commute. For a lot of people, it's not just coffee, it's a ritual. So when you see Dunkin grounds and K-cups in the grocery aisle, the logic seems obvious. Why not bring that same taste home? Save money, skip the drive-thru, get your Dunkin fix for a fraction of the price. There's just one problem. It doesn't taste like Dunkin. Consumer reviews and coffee rating sites are full of the same complaint. Bagged Dunkin coffee tastes nothing like the fresh brew from the store. Weak, sour, flat, a pale imitation that leaves fans genuinely confused about what went wrong. And something clearly did go wrong. Like most supermarket coffees, Dunkin's retail products are pre-ground, packaged for shelf life, and roasted without the same freshness standards as what's brewed in store. The Dunkin name is on the bag, but the Dunkin experience isn't inside it. Here's where the budget math falls apart. People buy those bags thinking they're saving compared to daily drive-through runs. But if the coffee is so disappointing they end up back in line anyway, they're double paying. Once for the bag that sits unused in the pantry, and again for the drinks they can't stop buying. In a strained economy, a $12 bag of coffee that gets abandoned isn't just a letdown. It's a hidden tax on people who are trying to be smart with their money. Dunkin is one of the most beloved coffee brands in America, but its store shelf products are one of the most shocking "don't waste your money" entries on this list, because fans expect so much more. The coffees so far have been about disappointment, wasted money, or rough taste. The next two take things further, because now we're talking about what happens when budget brands cut corners so hard they forget about quality entirely. When grocery prices are crushing your budget, store brands feel like the only option. Walmart's great value, regional house brands, generic labels that promise 100% coffee and smooth flavor at the absolute lowest price per ounce. For families stretched thin by inflation, these coffees aren't a choice. They're survival. But here's what often happens behind those cheap labels. Store brand coffees are typically made by third-party roasters using whatever blends cost the least. Quality control varies wildly. Taste tests describe the results as dusty, bitter, metallic, or simply flat. And when the flavor is that weak, people compensate. They double the scoops just to taste anything. They load up on creamer and sugar to mask the bitterness. They quietly erase the savings they thought they were getting, while increasing their caffeine intake in ways they didn't plan. The cruelest part? The people with the tightest budgets are the ones most punished. If you're buying great value because it's all you can afford, and half the bag ends up wasted because it's undrinkable, that's money gone. Calories added. A budget already under pressure taking another hit. Store brands get lumped into worst coffees lists constantly. Some instant variants are specifically called out in videos warning viewers to check their pantry and throw them out. And it's not all in people's heads. In 2025, instant coffee sold under Dollar General's Clover Valley brand was recalled nationwide because some lots may have contained glass fragments. The kind of thing that can chip teeth, cut your mouth and throat, or even perforate your intestines if swallowed. For some families, there's no alternative, but for anyone with even a little flexibility, it's worth asking, is the cheapest coffee actually the cheapest option? Or is it just the fastest way to waste money you don't have? And now we arrive at number one, because everything so far, the bad taste, the wasted money, the cut corners, pales in comparison to what happens when quality control completely breaks down. This is the one nobody expects. Kirkland Signature is Costco's crown jewel. It's the brand that built a warehouse empire on a single promise. Quality you can trust at prices that don't punish your wallet. Millions of middle-class and retired shoppers fill their carts with Kirkland products because they believe they're getting something better than the average grocery store offers. Yuban is the old-school classic, a smooth, affordable supermarket coffee that older Americans remember from childhood. The kind of coffee that feels safe because it's been around forever. And then the recalls started. In early 2023, Kirkland Signature Colombian cold brew coffee in cans was recalled after the producer warned that some cans could contain metal pieces, including the possibility of a metal bolt inside. It turned into one of Costco's biggest coffee recalls, with about 2.7 million cans pulled from shelves. Let that sink in. Metal pieces, possibly a bolt, inside a coffee product from the brand people trusted most. But it gets worse. In March 2025, 12-ounce bags of Our Family Traverse City Cherry decaf ground coffee were recalled in 15 states because some batches were mislabeled as decaffeinated, even though they contained caffeine. The product was manufactured by Massimo Zanetti Beverage USA, a major roaster behind several well-known supermarket brands, including legacy names like Yuban. Think about who buys decaf: pregnant women, people with heart conditions, patients on medications that interact dangerously with caffeine. They paid extra for the word decaf because their health depended on it, and instead, they were unknowingly consuming full-strength coffee every morning. And in the broader bargain coffee world, instant coffee from other low-cost brands has been recalled for possible glass fragments, showing how fragile quality control can be when everything is built around shaving pennies off the price. This isn't about taste anymore. This isn't about wasted money. This is about physical harm. Metal fragments can chip teeth, cut your throat, or cause internal injury. Mislabeled caffeine can trigger heart arrhythmias, panic attacks, or dangerous drug interactions in people who had every reason to believe they were safe. And for budget-focused Costco shoppers, those giant multi-pound cans of recalled coffee represent real money lost. Money that families counting every dollar simply cannot replace. Kirkland built its reputation on trust. Yuban built its on tradition. But when recalls start piling up, metal in cans, caffeine where it shouldn't be, quality control failures across the bargain coffee supply chain, that trust is shattered. The recall notices were real. The FDA warnings were real. And the nightmare scenario millions of shoppers never imagined? It already happened. So let's step back. From Folgers' stale, bitter cans to Maxwell House's broken promise. From K-Cups that cost more than specialty beans to Nescafe's processed shortcuts. From Seattle's best failing to live up to its name to Cafe Bustelo's rough ride intensity. From Dunkin bags that taste nothing like Dunkin to store brands that punish the people who can least afford it. And finally to Kirkland and Yuban, brands millions trusted that wound up at the center of recalls involving metal contamination and mislabeled caffeine that put vulnerable people at risk. One truth cuts through all of it. The coffee industry is not as transparent as it wants you to believe. In this economy, every dollar matters. You shouldn't have to wonder if your morning coffee is wasting your money, wrecking your taste buds, or putting your health at risk. But that's exactly where we are. So what can you do? Look for transparency. Here's what actually matters. Beans with the roast date printed. Not just a best buy date months away. Brands that tell you the country or region of origin, not just 100% Arabica. Smaller bags you can actually finish before they go stale instead of giant tubs that lose flavor halfway through. Because the cheapest coffee isn't the one with the lowest price tag. It's the one that doesn't let you down. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who deserves to know the truth. Subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation. And click the video YouTube picked for you right now. Because there's a lot more the food industry doesn't want you to know. Your coffee should wake you up, not make you wonder what you're actually drinking.